There's a specific kind of pressure that comes with being chosen first. Not worked up to, not gradually recognized, just overnight chosen, placed at the center, handed a title that millions of people voted for and immediately told, "This is who you are now." Park Ji-hoon was 19 years old when Produce 101 Season 2 made him one of the most recognized faces in South Korea. 19. And from that moment, he didn't just carry his own dreams anymore. He carried the dreams of every single person who had voted for him, every expectation, every projection, every version of Park Ji-hoon that existed in someone else's imagination. That's not a gift, that's a weight. And what nobody saw, what got buried under the winks and the center positions and the perfectly curated image, was just how heavy it got. Quick context. Park Ji-hoon, born May 29, 1999 in Masan, South Korea. Before the fame, before 101, before weak hero class turned him into a completely different kind of star, he was just a kid from a small city who wanted to perform. He trained, he auditioned, he did what every hopeful trainee does, gave everything to a system that promises nothing in return. And then he walked onto the Produce 101 stage and something clicked. That wink, that single, spontaneous, completely unplanned wink became a cultural moment. It went viral before going viral was even the language people used for things like that. He finished first, center of 101. 11 members, and he was the one standing in the middle. And then the real story began. Here's what people forget about Produce 101. The show didn't just launch careers, it manufactured identities. And once the show decided who you were, once the editing and the narrative and the public vote locked in your image, you were expected to be that, consistently, indefinitely, regardless of whether it was actually you. Park Ji-hoon's manufactured identity was the cute one, the visual, the wink guy. Sweet, soft, unthreatening, a face you wanted to protect. And he was 19 years old, so he leaned into it. Because what else do you do when an entire country has decided who you are? But here's the thing about being the cute one in a group of 11 extraordinarily talented people. It follows you, like a label that won't come off no matter how many times you try to peel it. He was never just that. Anyone who paid actual attention could see it. The stage presence, the precision, the way he performed like someone who had been practicing in his head long before his body ever caught up. There was always more underneath, but the industry had already filed him under a category, and categories are hard to escape. The 101 chapter and what it cost. 101 was massive, genuinely historically massive, the kind of group whose concert tickets sold out in minutes, whose fandom, Wannables, stretched across Asia, whose disbandment in January 2019 felt like a cultural loss to millions of people. But here's what people don't talk about enough when they talk about project groups. You build something real, real friendships, real chemistry, real shared history, and then the contract ends, and you go separate ways. Not because anyone wants to, because that was always the deal. Imagine spending the most formative years of your career building something with people you genuinely love, knowing the whole time that there's an expiry date on it. That psychological weight, the grief that starts before the thing is even over, doesn't just disappear when the last concert ends. It follows you into every project after, every time you stand on a stage alone and your muscle memory reaches for members who aren't there anymore. Jihoon has talked about missing 101 quietly, in the careful way people talk about things that still hurt, about the members, about that specific energy that only existed when all 11 of them were together and will never exist again in quite the same way. The solo career that had to fight for its own identity. After 101 disbanded, Jihoon went solo under Maru Entertainment, and the solo chapter was complicated, not unsuccessful. His fanbase, Bauman, stayed fiercely loyal. His music charted. His fan meetings sold out. But there was a persistent sense, felt by fans, acknowledged quietly by Jihoon himself, that he was still being seen through the lens of what he had been rather than what he was becoming. The cute image that had made him famous was now limiting him. Roles that should have been his went to other people because casting directors couldn't see past the visual softness. Music concepts that might have shown his range got softened to fit what the market expected from him. He was working incredibly hard inside a box that the industry had built around him, without asking. And then there were the industry scandals that touched him indirectly, but couldn't be ignored. The Produce 101 vote manipulation scandal. In 2019, investigations revealed that Mnet had manipulated the vote counts on multiple seasons of Produce 101, including Season 2, the season that launched Wanawan, the season that made Park Ji-hoon center. Producers were indicted, the company faced massive public backlash, and the members of Wanawan, who had done nothing wrong, who had worked genuinely hard for everything they achieved, were suddenly standing in the middle of a question nobody wanted to answer out loud. Would the results have been the same if the votes were real? That's an impossible thing to carry. To have your biggest achievement suddenly shadowed by a question mark that wasn't your fault and couldn't be resolved. Jihoon didn't make a big statement. Neither did most of the members. They were victims of the system they'd trusted and somehow still had to absorb the public's complicated feelings about it. The quiet dignity they all maintained through that scandal said more about their character than any statement could have. The loneliness underneath the smile. Here's the thing about Park Ji-hoon's smile. It's real. Don't misread this. It's genuinely, warmly real. But real smiles and hidden pain are not mutually exclusive. You can mean every smile and still be exhausted underneath it, still be lonely in a crowd, still be quietly wondering whether the people around you see the person or the persona. Jihoon has hinted, carefully in between the lines of interviews, about the isolation that comes with his specific kind of fame, about finding it hard to turn off the performance, about the gap between public Jihoon and private Jihoon getting wider the more famous he became, about going home after packed fan meetings and sitting in silence and feeling somehow alone. That's the part nobody talks about. And then came Weak Hero Class. If there was ever a role designed by the universe to crack Park Ji-hoon's image open and show what was underneath, it was Yeon Si-eun. Quiet, cerebral, deceptively fragile on the surface, and made of something completely different underneath. A character who absorbed violence and injustice without losing himself, who fought back not with rage, but with intelligence and will. Sound familiar? Jihoon didn't just play that character, he understood him from the inside out. The performance he gave in Weak Hero Class wasn't the result of great acting training alone. It was the result of someone who had spent years being underestimated, quietly absorbing the weight of other people's expectations and choosing, over and over, not to let it break him. He brought all of that to Si-eun, and the audience felt every bit of it. The response was unlike anything he'd experienced before. Not the screaming, immediate, vote-driven fame of Produce 101, something slower and deeper. Critics noticed, industry people noticed, a completely new audience found him, people who had never watched a K-pop idol stage in their lives and recognized something real in what he was doing. For the first time, the label the industry had given him didn't fit the conversation anymore. He had outgrown it. Finally, visibly, undeniably. Park Ji-hoon today is someone in the middle of becoming. Weak Hero Class 2 expanded what the first season built. His range as an actor is now a documented fact, not a theory. The industry is catching up, slowly, the way it always does, to the reality of who he actually is. His fan base, Bowman, has grown and deepened. They were always loyal. Now they're also proud in a different way, the way you're proud of someone who fought for the version of themselves that deserved to be seen. He still smiles that smile, the one that made a country fall in love with him at 19. But now, if you look closely, there's something behind it that wasn't there before. Not sadness, not exhaustion, just someone who knows finally exactly who he is. Park Ji-hoon's story is about what happens when the world decides who you are before you've had the chance to figure it out yourself. And then what happens when you quietly, stubbornly refuse to stay in that box. He didn't do it loudly, didn't make it a narrative, just showed up, did the work, and let the truth of what he was capable of speak for itself. That takes more strength than any wink could ever. If there is a Korean celebrity whose story you think deserves this kind of light, drop their name in the comments. We'll get there.